You may notice that there is something missing over here somewhere. Barbara will be here in just a minute. Her husband has only just come home, so she thought she'd better say hello to him and things like that. But if anybody is there and can hear me and can see me, if you could pop something in the chat so I don't feel quite so much on my own. Although, as you know, I'm pretty good at just chatting away all by myself. So, right, I know there's somebody there. Who is there? Keeps kind of saying there's someone there, there's not somebody there. We'll give it a few minutes anyway to see if we catch it. The problem is, I think everyone's got so used to us being late because of all the tech issues with Facebook, but now we're on YouTube, it is easy peasy and it seems to work really smoothly. So it's so much better. And it means we can be super on time and amazing and all that kind of stuff. So it's really good. So yes, let us know if you can see me. Let me know if you can hear me. And then we can get started talking about our dog's stress responses, which is really important. I mean, all the things we talk about on here are really important. But this one, I always think, it's not necessarily what you think it's going to be. And not all our dogs are behaving the way that we expect. So I'm just catching myself up a smidgy. So yeah, do say hello if you're there. And because I'm feeling a smidge on the lonely side just at the moment. Well, because I've got no Barbara. It's like having your left arm chopped off. So it would be nice to have a little chat. So yeah, my Hattie's been a bit limpy today, so she's a little bit on the grumpy side, but she's in the vet's tomorrow, so hopefully we can get a quick update and see if we need to change any of her meds or anything like that. So yes. Facebook's still being really weird. It keeps not showing things to people, which is very annoying in lots of groups. So it just takes everything a little bit of a while to get up to speed. Okay, so yeah, if you can, say hello, give me a wave, give me a thumbs up, put a pineapple in the comments, all those sorts of things. That would be super cool. It'd be lovely to hear from you. And then I shall get moving. It just seems very slow today. I don't know. Don't quite know what's going on. Oh, hang on just a second. It's because I'm in the wrong one. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm in the wrong one. Ah, right. Okay. Let me just edit the title a little bit and just double check that I'm in the right place. I can't remember what this one was supposed to be. Okay, I feel a bit silly now that I'm in the wrong place. Just double check I'm in the right place. Yeah, so I planned this one for next week, and it seems to have, I think it's because I've got two planned, if you see what I mean. So it gets itself a little bit confused, but it's okay. I can change it. Probably. Oh, I've got to love it. Okie dokie. So hopefully everybody can see me. Just do say hello if you are there so I don't feel so lonely. Keep wittering on. There we go. That's a bit better. Right. So come on, say hello so that I know that you are there, you lovely people. So what is your dog saying? when they get super stressed. So what exactly is happening? Okay, I'm just double checking because I'm just not sure if I did something silly. I don't think I have. I don't think I have. Ah, Carmela's here but can't comment. This is the wrong one, Carmela. So this isn't the consent-based grooming one this week. That's next week. So it got in a little bit of a pickle. This is the it's not stress, that's a sass, it's stress. So if you can go on to the other stream, that would be super cool. And then I'll know it's you. Right, let's get on with it. Okie dokie. So once I've just double checked one little thing, it's funny, isn't it? Still getting used to how everything works. I think I'm doing it right, but we'll soon find out. It just doesn't seem to be as many people on as we normally get. So I'm just checking that's not because I've done anything too stupid. I don't think so. I don't think I have, but we'll find out. Do tell me if I have done anything too stupid, because it's always possible. Great. Okie dokie. So what are we talking about today? So we're talking about how our dogs react when they are under stress. So we've talked before about there being four primary stress responses. So we've got fight and flight, which are the ones we're super familiar with. We've also got freeze and we've got fooling around. And how, if we recognize these, it can help us just support our dogs a whole heap better. So just to introduce each of them super duper quickly. So fight is where we see that aggressive looking behavior. We get the barking, we get the lunging, we get all those other horrible, embarrassing behaviors. Flight is where the dog will attempt to escape or avoid a situation. So they could try to hide or something like that, just to kind of pretend that they're not there and avoid that situation completely. There's freeze, so you get sudden immobility, but it can also just be a stiffness. So if you look at a dog's body and how they're walking, oh, Vivian, you can't comment either. Oh no. Oh dear. Put your comments just under that post. Yeah, just put the comments in the post and I'll keep an eye out for them. I'm so pleased you're here. So yeah, freeze, sudden immobility, or it can be like a stiffness. It's almost like a jerky movement that you can see. Or there's fooling around. So, and that's the most confusing one, isn't it? Because you've got a dog who looks like it's having a great time. It's looking super playful, it's being a bit daft, but it can also mask stressed. So let's have a little question. And as I say, wherever you happen to be, if you can comment wherever you can. So when your dog is stressed, what do you notice first? Do they bark, lunge, whatever? Do they try and run away and hide? Do they go a bit stiff? Or do they start acting a bit silly? So which one of those does your dog tend to do? What's their kind of go-to? So if you can pop either in the chat or in the comments on the where Carmela and Vivian have already commented, just pop what your dog does. So are they bark and lunge? Are they go really stiff or freeze completely? Do they try and run away or hide? Or do they go a little bit silly? Which does your dog do? I think we've got a little bit of a lag going on here, which is not great. Oh, Barbara's here. Hurrah! Just letting her in. She should pop up here any second now. There she is. Here she comes. Yay! So what do you tend to see first? I feel like I'm zapping around everywhere at the moment. So I can't see anything in the chat, and I don't know if people are struggling with chatting at the moment. Um, or what? Hi, Barbara. She's muted at the moment, getting herself sorted out, getting the dog sorted out.
Hey.
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 I'm just
Hi,
trying to
everyone.
see. We've got people that are struggling to comment, so I'm just trying to balance everything out. But I think we're okay.
Oh, so many things going on again, and you juggling with 15 boards. You're
Again,
amazing.
I know.
Yeah,
So
you're just amazing.
I know. And then my business partner, she's late just because she wants to say hello to her husband.
Yeah,
So
really ridiculous.
anyway, Carmela says she's learned that Parker falls around when stressed when she started doing it at the vets. You are on the
Mhm.
right week, by the way. You are. I was just worrying whether I was because anyway, don't need to worry about that. I've got a plan though of what I might do moving forward. I've got a plan. Anyway, that's by the by. So yes, so yeah, you sometimes you start noticing that your dog starts being a little bit daft. And it's something that we miss, isn't it? It's a real miss, one that we do miss. And again, I can't see any more comments. I'm not seeing any comments on YouTube at the moment. I don't know if there's anyone there that can put them in, just to show that they do work. Um, because it's a bit scary. Anyway. So let's have a little bit of a dive into each of the responses. So the first response is fight. So what
That's
we're
the
going
straightforward one, right? That's the one that everybody
well,
knows.
isn't it? Isn't really, isn't it? Because there still gets misinterpreted.
Hmm.
Because, it is the one that we expect, isn't it? That barking, growling, lunging. But sometimes, we often see it as aggression when it's not aggression, it's more defensive. And that's where it can be misinterpreted, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the dog's just doing it because it's saying, it's trying to make myself look big and scary. So all the scary stuff goes away. So, yeah, I think that one can get a little bit misinterpreted.
Dude, can you go hop it up? Stevie, hop it up. I'm getting a bit of an echo.
I haven't. I don't know why you have. That must be
I hear myself.
frustrating. Yeah.
Look, anyway,
So,
just won't
yeah,
say
so
anything. It's fine.
with the fight, dogs prefer, I mean, if you watch free roaming dogs and that kind of thing, you don't get that many fights. Dogs like to avoid conflict. They'll tend to only go for that fight response when all the other options have gone. They aren't available to them for whatever reason. So flight, for example, wouldn't be available if they've got a lead on, that kind of thing. Freeze might not be available because if they try and freeze, they might get walked on and not be able to just sort of not do anything. So, so what about flight? So the sort of behaviors we see with flight, so we see the obvious one, just running away. But it could also be hiding or cowering, so trying to make themselves look a bit smaller. And sometimes people look at that and just think that their dog's being disobedient and not doing what they're told. So if you're out for a walk and you've got a dog that suddenly wants to go the other way because they're scared, it's like, oh no, we're going this way. So it kind of can look a little bit like they're just being stubborn or they're being disobedient, but actually it's a stress response. That's the whole reality of the thing. That's Yeah, Carmela's just said Hobbs looks really aggressive, but really just saying don't get too close. It breaks my heart when people think he's aggressive. And I totally agree. You're absolutely right. It's really hard. Um, sorry, just Barbara's comments make me laugh. Um, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because you're being sort of, you feel like you've got this really horrible aggressive dog and you haven't at all. You've just got a dog trying to be a dog and trying to cope in a world that's a bit scary.
Hmm.
So sometimes, so that's why we talk a lot about when we've got our dog being stressed about creating space. because if we give them an escape route, we help them to move away and do the flight, then they don't have to resort to the fight bit. So it kind of gives them an alternative. And that's also one of the reasons why you get fewer um, of the fight responses when the dogs are off lead than when they're on lead, because they could just turn around. Do chip in anytime you want to, Barbara. I'm just carrying on.
Totally cool.
So the
Totally.
freeze is sudden stillness or refusal to move. And you see this really often, don't you, with very young dogs
Mm-hmm.
when you're first starting to introduce them to the outside world and they just like, it's too scary. And the
Mm-hmm.
temptation, the massive temptation is to try and force them to carry on
Yeah.
and
And
do
the
too
thing
much.
is, people never aware that they're forcing. Nobody would ever force well, you know what I mean? But the thing is, all that coaxing with the cookies, handing the cookies to the stranger, just try and feed my dog, that sort of thing. Come over here, just try, just come, look, it's harmless, that sort of stuff. That can then create more problems going down because now we're creating some kind of conflict. Either the dog says no to the cookies, oh, wait, good for them, right? But then you know that they already quite stressed. Or they might like try to go for the cookies a little bit, but they're not really sure. So all that conflict actually does make things worse. So
It can
much
be quite
rather,
dangerous as well, can't it? The
yeah,
conflict.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So the
definitely.
best thing is really, I mean, with young dogs, doesn't matter how they react. The best thing is actually to let them work it out. Just let them work through it. Be supportive and everything. And I mean, if it's an over-the-top reaction and they just want to be out of the situation, then you have to obviously help them, give them the exit, like you explained earlier with the flight. But they need to be able to go behind something, go maybe behind you or get the distance. But you know, it's really confidence building for them to then go like, okay, let me have a look, and to just be
People
patient
that's
and just support them and laugh and like,
yeah,
you know, and make the and sort of work more. I think our role is more to create the space, to hold the space, to make the atmosphere nice, that sort of thing, rather than get too hooked on a particular outcome for the dog. Because also what often happens is when they do work it out and they're like, oh yeah, whatever, they like move on and they go on to something else. Oh, it's not scary. Okay, whatever. They don't necessarily now want to be all over the thing. And I think especially when it comes to human dog interaction, that's often where, the temptation to expect too much from the dog is it's just there, right? Because we want them to interact. Or we might want, them to interact with the person. But I noticed this so often and I was like, wow, a big hairy monster, like plastic bag in the landscape. Wow.
yeah,
And then they like go from all, and then suddenly they realize it's harmless. And then they just move on. They don't go all the way up and pull the thing, like we would
yeah,
do. They're just like, oh, whatever. And then they move on.
yeah. They just need to be able to take their own time, don't they, really,
Mm,
sometimes?
mm.
We've got a couple of comments and
Ah,
questions.
cool.
So Vivian, this is one for you, Barbara.
I don't see any.
I
Ah,
can you see it now? Can you see Vivian's comment now?
I see Vivian's and I see you said yay.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's the only one.
Okay, good.
There are some on Facebook as well, so I'll keep an eye on the Facebook ones.
Okay.
So
Sorry, my border collie goes into herding when he reacts to something. Yeah. So,
how
can
would you kind of categorize that in terms of the stress responses, that herding that the border collie does? Is that a freeze response or
it depends.
yeah,
I would. It really just depends. I mean, maybe Vivian, you can be a bit specific on the exact behaviors that you see: crouching, eye stalking, circling, nipping, uh, or else, right? I mean, what is it that you that you see, and then we can maybe
Yeah,
so
because we need to dig into what was coming,
yeah,
what was behind that.
yeah, and exactly. I've never
Yes,
really thought
why
about it.
it's doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I do. The stress response is an arousal response there, totally. Um, the, I mean, I'm really talking off the cuff here. Um, Not an expert,
Okay.
besides life with border collies. But I mean, part of the, yeah, it does freeze a bit then eyeing. Yeah, so I would say that herders are a little prone to this. Yeah? The standing and looking and the eyeing.
Yeah, definitely. They
And this is,
definitely do.
that's actually an interesting, I mean, this is a bit off, I mean, it is topic, but it's not where we necessarily where we want to go. It might be something we want to think about and have a conversation with other people. I know that we're not wanting to be too breed specific, because as oftentimes point out, you have so much variation between dogs from the same breed. But there are certain genetic patterns that you tend to see in certain dogs. So um, whether certain responses, are more frequently aligned with behaviors that we tend to see in certain breed types. Does that make sense,
Yeah,
Julia?
totally.
Might be interesting to look at it. And then, in mixed breeds, you never know, a lot of this might come up. And then, of course, I mean, you have border collies that aren't very herdy, and you have border collies that are super herdy. So, um, so Vivian says, I think it would be all, but when he does herd inappropriate, I will walk in another direction. So,
Yeah,
yeah. So that is the thing. So oftentimes when it's a little bit difficult to categorize something, I'm the first one to say, well, it doesn't really matter. Im Important is that we realize that something is a stress response.
exactly that.
So, and that it's also, if it is inappropriate and over, what's the word? Disproportionate,
Yes.
that is where we talk about reactivity. So is it so we know our dogs, okay, is this a freeze, is it a flight, in the end, all we need to know is that all that oh, disproportionate stress responses can look, or reactivity can look different from the stereotype. I think that is
Yeah.
the whole point, isn't it, Julia?
Yeah, exactly.
And so if we have a herding breed, we might get too much staring, which can be perceived as very threatening from another dog. That doesn't make the border
Very much
collie a
so.
fighter, but and somebody else might not see this, and then the other dog might stand and start barking, and then people go and say, "Oh, don't bark, this is rude," or whatever. Meanwhile, the poor dog was totally triggered and provoked by too much staring, right?
Yeah, and I know Hattie really struggles with border collies. I've
Mm.
told the
That eye is, it's
story
very
before
strong.
when she came across a dog who used to live locally. He's not with us anymore, bless him. Who was a cross between an Irish wolfhound and a border collie. So it's like this enormous border collie. And
Wow.
she literally screamed and ran away when it started eye stalking her.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, really weird. Um, so yeah. Okay, I'm just checking for I've come out of Facebook, which was silly. Right, fooling around, of course. Now that fooling around is, I think it's quite a complicated one, isn't it? Because it's like a displacement behavior. Um, but you've got to be, it can be really difficult so say, for example, your dog's meeting somebody new. Um, they might not, and they're fooling around and stuff, knowing whether it's a stress response because they're anxious or whether it's a genuine excitement response or whether it's because they're trying to avoid them touching something that's a bit sore or something like that. Really hard to actually do that sort of observation. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, totally. But again, I think the the really important bit here is to be reminded that those kind of behaviors can be indicative of, is that the right way you say? Of
Indicative, yeah,
stress or, a bit of anxiety or, or stress is the most neutral way, I think, to phrase it
yes,
in dogs. That I always think of an encounter we had when a friend came to visit and all my dogs were overreacting. And the guy had been in, John and the friend had been in the bush, for an extended period. They came back and I mean, like smells galore, fire and whatnots and no
yeah.
showers and all that. So there's that. And then tall person, haven't seen him in ages. And then two of the dogs had never met him. And then they were in, they kind of oscillated between fight and flight, right? Like
Yeah.
lunging and barking, running away, lunging and barking, running away, lunging and barking, running away. But they didn't go near him. And so we managed, de-escalate the situation, put them in, away and whatnot, and give them chews and so on. But Noah would bite, but go up, jump up, jump up, jump up. So he's an over enthusiastic greeter for sure. But he could not settle. He would just he was constant, all over him, all over him. When the guy was really pleased, he thought, oh, he remembers me and oh, he's so friendly.
Mhm.
And I was looking at this and I thought, the dog is really stressed. It's just his way of reacting is he goes in and he jumps up, but normally he will do that initially and then he settles on his bed and he gets a chewy or he looks for a toy and picks it up and that, but he just could not settle. He was like constantly it was really more than was usual. And so for him that was just more than he normally does. It
And
was totally
that's it
inappropriate. I
though,
mean, he
isn't
does a
it?
bit of jumping anyway, but
Yeah.
and
It's
then I
that
realized.
deviation from what's normal.
Yeah, and it
Isn't
came,
it?
the person was very happy. He loves dogs. He was clearly not concerned about being jumped on or made dirty or anything like that. But it wasn't all, um, what's the word? I can't think.
Words are difficult.
Lovely, right? Like, no,
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily like a super happy dog in that minute. He was like, ah, gotta stay close. Have to check it out, whatever. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking, but I think you get my meaning. Like there is anxiety and stress that underlies this behavior because otherwise the dog would settle. And whether, and even if you just have a dog that is like super happy to see people and wagging their tails the whole time and jumping, 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 that's also stressful. There might be,
Mm.
it's too much arousal. I mean, it's ultimately not great for the
Yeah,
dog.
it is. And it's kind of when you look at that sort of what's going on from the dog, when you've got that excitement, so that's a positive high arousal behavior, whereas you've got the anxiety, well, the fear really, which is a negative over arousal fear. It doesn't take an awful lot to get from one to the other.
Exactly.
So
Ah,
you've got to be so careful, haven't you?
yeah.
So you've just put a light bulb on for Carmela in that it's the overreaction that indicates that it's stress. So with falling around, Parker will go totally over the top, and that's when I know that she's stressed. And
Mhm.
that's it. It's what's normal for them. And it's why it doesn't really help to compare the reaction of something, I don't know, say you've got a totally mad working Cocker Spaniel with, super drivey, jumpy, jumpy. Their stress response, their normal response, sorry, is going to look pretty up here. Whereas if you had, I don't know, a Mastiff or something that's pretty laid back, If they looked anything like, anything like a normal response that you'd get from a Cocker Spaniel, you'd know that that dog was super stressed out.
Mm.
So it's what's normal for your dog.
Mm.
It's like with my two.
Yeah.
What's normal for Dash? No, what's normal for Hattie would be pretty stressed out for Dash.
So I put our question in the chat, just kind of thought I might pop the question, and then I was a bit too trigger happy, so I put it in the chat. So what does it look like? We already had a couple of people commenting actually on, what their dogs do. So if any of you that are watching this on the replay, just think about, which of these, what does your dog do first, where
And
is it?
another thing to really think about with all of them actually is what's normal for your dog.
Hmm.
So a freeze response similarly is going to be look different in different dogs. As
Mm-hmm.
I was saying right at the start, sometimes it just looks like a bit of stiffness or jerkiness. It doesn't have to be frozen to the spot stuff. And again, it's what's normal for your dog. So knowing what your dog's movement normally looks like, what their behavior in various situations, what that normally looks like. So
Yeah,
then that you can decide, well, what does the deviation look like?
yeah, so true. And sometimes it's also just realizing that your dog was telling you something.
Mm.
It might not last very long and they might get over it really quickly, and that's cool. And that's not, yeah, I mean, then they're not overreacting or anything. But the more we watch, because here's the other thing, most dogs would probably have a bit of all of these responses in certain
Absolutely.
situations. And so it is what number one is, where do they tend to fall, and what will be their typical overreaction? What is that one, right? So in Buddhism, we always say it's a little bit more, there's a bit more complexity. There's like 10 different sort of states, but everybody will always go through all of them, but you have sort of some that you fall into more easily than others. We all have different dispositions, right? In our
We all have a go-to behavior, isn't it? It's like becomes
yeah,
a habitual thing. This is what I do, depending
yeah,
on our individual
yeah,
character.
yeah, exactly. Um, so the better we know our dogs and the better we know, oh, now it's really getting,
But if we
yeah.
think about what we're like ourselves and think about different situations, so just thinking about me as a human, because why not? Um, if I'm in a situation where I'm really stressed, so if I'm super stressed, I'll go really quiet. So, but if I'm just in a slightly stressful situation, then I can get quite talkative and hyper and find myself hilarious. So I'm that typical, fool around if things are getting a bit stressful. But if things get super stressful, I'm a hide, a freeze type of person. I'm very rarely a fight. Um, uh, yeah, very rarely. Well, I suppose I do get a bit cross sometimes, but not very often. Um, I think, and yeah, so and I'm not a runner awayer, mainly because running in public isn't really my thing. But I will do the kind of hide away, I'll lock myself away. So have a think about how you respond yourself. And because that can, I think I really like thinking about making those parallels between ourselves and our dogs because there are so many of them. And if we can see what we do ourselves, then we can start seeing it in our dogs about how different we all are. What would you say your default stress response is, Barbara?
Um, and this is a bit because I have to say it depends a little bit on the situation, but
Right, yeah, absolutely.
um, there is definitely freeze.
Hmm.
So if I have too many balls in the air and I suddenly feel like it's overwhelming and I can't cope, then I will go off and do something completely different. I'll go
Yeah.
and read my book, or I take the dogs for a long walk away. Not necessarily, I mean, sometimes that's good as a de-stressor too, but that is not why. This is sort of a combo of freezing and running away instead of just taking action and chopping everything down and just, getting
I
some
can
stuff done.
confirm that that is true.
And this is interesting. Tell me about that. Anyway, and but I can also, if I'm in a situation where, when other, because no, I live a relatively solitary life, so then I tend to do that. I do not shout at the walls easily. I do not kind of, John might get really frustrated working and then he hears swearing coming from the garage or something. I don't do that. So that's not that fight response, right? Like, why is this happening? For fuck's sakes, kind of a thing. I don't
Mm.
really do that. But I might fall into anger quickly in an interactive scenario if I get overwhelmed by too much
Yeah.
stress, right? So yeah.
So let's have a look at, we've got a couple of comments. So the mutts butts, I'm sure you have a different name. Fixated, whines, then lunges. So your dog is going through those like a process. So their first go-to is to freeze. And then because they're fixating, the arousal level's going up and up and up. And then we end up with that fight because it's like, well, hang on a minute, this isn't working, which you can kind of get there. Now, Patricia said we have to stop the fun. Could you expand on that a little bit, Patricia? I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but it sounds like it might be something interesting.
Oh, you have to stop the fun.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I suppose. I mean, are you talking about, if it's sort of you're having playtime or something like that, and your dog goes a little bit over the top, then you have to bring them back down again. So it's bringing down the arousal level. Not sure.
Hmm.
Not sure. So if once we understand what our dog stress responses look like, I suppose the next question is, well, what do we do about it? And
Yeah.
again, I suppose I could put that into a human context.
Hey, Stevie, leave him alone.
So what I was saying before with you, Barbara, when you
Mm.
kind of, because you have a response that's quite similar to mine in a way, in that when you're overwhelmed, like you say, you tend to sort of do a little bit of a freeze and hopefully run away if possible, kind of thing. But let's pretend that you're a dog and you do that. I'm your owner. So when I see that, when we're working together and I start to see that, I know that you're feeling overwhelmed and everything's getting a bit much and you need some space and some time. So I make sure that I don't put anything more on your shoulders. And I would do the same, you do the same with a dog, wouldn't you? Say, you're feeling overwhelmed right now. I'm seeing those starting signs. So Barbara hasn't got to the stage yet where she shouted at me or tried to punch
That's
me.
never gonna happen.
That's never going to happen. Punch me over the computer or anything like that. But no, we just don't. We don't get to that stage because we're quite good at understanding and reading each other. So we don't have to.
Yeah.
And we've got the option, of course, to be able to say, actually, I just need to step away for a minute, where our dogs don't, which is why seeing what they do is really more important.
So I think the first thing what we can do is to give ourselves and our dogs grace, right? Just to realize that whatever it is that we see that is driving us nuts is a response by the dog.
Yeah,
They're always doing the best they can. They're always doing the
exactly.
best.
Now,
And if that
Patricia's
is not what we like, well, they can't help it in a moment. So moving out of that, either away from the situation, no matter how they react, it doesn't really matter how they react, right? Moving them out of the situation is always the best thing. No, they're not feeling okay, so let's just get some distance. Or if it is happening at home, how can we make them comfortable, or how can we oftentimes there's arousal in the thing. How can we get rid of some of that excitement and arousal first, right? Just really, really realizing there's an emotional response and we need to work on the emotions first, just like with us.
exactly.
I mean, I'm sure many of you have been in a situation where you were really upset, and then if somebody just tries to fix it,
Oh, yes.
right? When people just try to fix it for you.
Yeah.
Look, it's not so bad, but plaster, right? That can make it feel even worse. What's the first thing that you actually want? You want to feel acknowledged and
Yeah, and you want to be able to offload and to rant a
yeah.
bit, that kind of
Good.
thing. You
Help it
don't
out.
actually
The
want a
last chance.
solution.
Otherwise, you have to be removed from the situation.
Yeah.
Not that she understands that. It's more a reminder for myself.
Carmela reckons she's my stress twin. We could both be, if we're both stressed, we could just both be antisocial and grumpy together. That's me.
Yeah.
Patricia, you said that there was another comment above, but I can see two comments from you, but I can't see any more above that. So what's Debbie said? The lunging is to get to smells, not bothered by people or dogs, which is good. But bags, stone ornaments. So that's kind of like a novelty thing, isn't it? Or it could be if they're ornaments that lots of dogs have had a wee on, for example, to make it extra stinky. Could be something like that, couldn't it? Which would kind of make a whole heap of sense. Ah, dear. So, question for you again. Oh, what are we going to do about it? So we're learning to read these responses. We're understanding what the responses are, and we're understanding that the fight response might not be our dog's go-to response initially. There might be something before that. So Dash, again, he will do a freeze response before doing a fight response. So we can intervene, we can provide safe spaces, we can create space, we can avoid forcing any kind of interactions, we can give our dogs all those choices. Meanwhile, doing confidence building. So making sure that our dogs are getting lots and lots of positive outcomes when they're doing things that are a little bit different, a little bit novel, and they might not be totally sure about. So do you say that your dog has their go-to stress response? So who thinks their dog has a go-to stress response? So if your dog's go-to is a fight, flight, freeze, or fall around, just write in the comments which you think your dog's go-to is. So what's the one that they will do first? So not the one that's necessarily the loudest or the one that you notice the most, but the one that they actually do first. What would be their go-to? So with what was I going to say? With Dashi, he would be a freeze. That would be his go-to. Hats would be a flight. That would be her go-to. So that's the first thing that happens. And then they might go to fight after that if that didn't work. So what about you guys? So who've we got? So Carmela, definitely Hobbs fight, Parker fall. It'd be interesting to see with Hobbs if you could notice if there's any kind of change in his movement pattern before the fight. I just find that sort of stuff so interesting. So Vivian, freeze first, yep. Kirsten, first freezes, then lunges and barks, yep, really common. That's the same as the same, my Dashi. He would do that, go really rigid, and then turn into Godzilla. I did get the best photo of Dash once. I'll have to find it and put it on one of our posts where he did look like a T-Rex. He wasn't reacting or anything. He was jumping around in a lake. But he just his he looked like he had the little front forelegs, and then because he's got that massive mouth, he's like it's too funny.
Funny.
It's one of my
That's
favorite photos
really, really
ever.
funny. Oh my.
Fab.
Cool.
I don't think we had any questions. If anybody's got any questions that you want us to go through, do you want to pop them in the chat of your choice now? We'll have a little look, see if there's anything that we need to cover. I can't think of anything that we needed to cover. I had a quick look before we came on, see if I'd missed anything, but I don't think so. While we're doing that, next week, Barbara's going to be off doing exciting things. I, however, am going to be joined by Victoria Shepherd. So you'll recognise her from the festival. And we're going to talk about a consent-based, well, she's a groomer, so she's looking at it from a grooming perspective, but it includes all handling.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be really good, actually. So
Yes.
we've got a little guest speaker coming your way. So Hobbes will fixate a fraction of a second before a fight. I've learnt to read that now and give him the let's go move away command. And yeah, we've talked about it before. It's that being able, can you intervene in time? But you have to get,
Mhm.
like you say, so good at reading them, don't you? Because it can be
Oh.
such a small opportunity. Brilliant. I see no questions so far.
Cool. That was
Super.
a nice one. I really like this topic. It's
I
always a
do too. I find it
good
so
one.
interesting. And I
Yeah.
think each time we talk about it or each time we think about it, there's another angle
Mm.
in there somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah. It also is something we talked about earlier this morning, Julia, that training always has to, that we are firm believers that training always has to benefit the dog,
It
right?
does.
So, and I think this shows so clearly why that is so important and how it applies, right? Because if you just look at the dog, oh, he's behaving badly, and training approach like that that's not in the interest of the dog. It's really about helping the dog cope better in certain situations. That's what
Exactly.
training does. And training can only do that if the dog is in the right frame,
Yeah.
emotionally in the right frame, right? And then to give them tools, or as a team, to have tools to cope better in these stressful scenarios. So both changing how the dog needs to, the emotional needs of the dog to react in a certain way, like to fall into these go-to behaviors, that sort of thing, to be able to change that to a certain extent. There's only so much, I mean, it can be, sometimes dramatic, the change, but the thing is, our dogs still come with a certain personality and they will always have that personality. So there is never a complete remake of a dog. Um, but ultimately, it's all about them feeling better, and then therefore, we also feel better, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, to have those tools, and also to be able to go through a journey like this and come out better and stronger and happier on the other end. And it's just that's
Yeah.
such a gift, that's such a treasure, right?
And it's one of the main ways over the last sort of 5, 10 years, really, that the dog behavior world has moved on, hasn't it? Is that kind of realization and acknowledgement and focus that what we're doing and what we're training is for the benefit of the dog.
Mm,
and that the human will benefit as a result of that. Of course
mm.
they will, but if it's not for the benefit of the dog, it's pointless.
Yeah, and it's dialogue, right?
Yeah.
The interaction, the training, it's dialogue. It's not us giving the dog commands and then the dog has to respond with a behavior. And if they don't, then they're a bad dog. It's really a dialogue. Can you do this? You know, how do you feel? Us being able to read how they communicate, and they communicate in very dog specific ways. So we need to start learning a bit of dog, you know?
Do you know
Um,
what? I think it might be good to have a little week in a couple of weeks where we focus on that as our topic
mm,
about what about training is not for your, it's for the dog's benefit and what the implications, what that looks like, what that means.
yeah,
That might be kind of fun.
that would be super fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that
And
in my.
yeah.
That sounds like a really, Carmela's saying lovely things about us, so thank you, Carmela. She loves our topics.
Thank you. It's
So do
always nice.
we.
Yeah, and it's always nice to have you on the lives commenting and responding because this is the same thing, right? It has to benefit. I mean, we're always having fun, but it has to benefit you guys. So, and it should be like a dialogue, right? Not, hearing what it is that you are dealing with and going through, and then for all of us to have a dialogue on it and helping each other. Talking about helping each other, if any of you, whether you are now or watching this later, need help, feel a little lost, feel a bit frustrated or anything, or stuck, reactivity can be a tough journey, we know this. We've got ways to help and support you. So please don't hesitate. Just reach out to
Yeah.
us. There's no strings attached. Just reach out, let us know what's going on, and then we can see if there is something that we can ways that we can support you. We've got a bunch of options, right? So don't just might assume that
Yeah,
you
you're
know
never
it's
alone.
not for you. Exactly. So just reach out to us, let us know. I'm sure there is a way that we can help you
Yeah. So Patricia's just put
specifically.
that's today's gem. Ultimately, training and shaping is to make the dogs feel better. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Thanks, Camila.
So Debbie said, we're making progress. We now whine and disengage. We're losing the lunging. The question is, can a clicker increase arousal? That's a very timely question from your perspective, I think, Barbara. Because you've been looking at clicker training quite a lot lately, haven't you?
Mm. So I don't think it's the clicker. I've heard this
I have too. Yeah.
before. I don't think it's the clicker. I think it is look, the clicker is a tool in your training process. It provides immediate feedback to your dog. It's wonderful. I love everything about it. Marker training and clicker training. The increased arousal, the frustration comes into play if, okay, so I want to formulate this as positively as, um, first of all, it's a big question in a way, right?
Yeah.
Because so if you find that you're using a clicker and it increases the arousal, it's not necessarily the clicker. You would want to look, it's reinforcement-based training, right? So you want to have a look at what your antecedent arrangements are in your setting, right? What is your dog expecting? And what are you expecting in that situation? And if the dog is, if there's too much excitement or arousal, there's often frustration in play. So there might be a cross. What's the term when you say that? Like a collision of the expectations. Number
Yeah.
one. Number two, depending on the dog, there could be the timing placement of the reinforcement, etc. Right? So again, if you're not setting the dog up for success, as long as your rate of reinforcement is really high and your sessions are really short, there shouldn't be an increase in arousal. But it's like with all the things, if the expectations, if the dog is not set up for success, and if there are the expectations are on cross purposes, then you might. But it's not the clicker's fault. And
Yes.
then, of course, things can get conditioned. So if we have a, if the clicker becomes a predictor of this is how I feel, then my human brings out the clicker, right? Then that can happen. But I would not say the clicker does that. No.
No, but it can be anything that's, a predictor of something good. It's not a clicker per se, is it?
Yeah, and I mean the
Some
same
dogs just get
might
super
arrive.
excited with training and having a lovely
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So no, I wouldn't. As a generalized statement like that, I would say no.
Yeah.
Clicker as such doesn't. I have a very easily falling into high arousal dog. Let's put it that way. Gets frustrated really quickly, but he works through it and he just gets higher and higher and higher. And then I get barky, I get fast movement, I get throwing of, lots of behaviors, that might sound familiar, that sort of thing. And I find that when I bring out the clicker, my communication becomes much clearer and then all of that goes away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. You can have less frustration because you've got greater clarity.
Mm.
Mm.
But it depends again how we do it, right?
Yeah,
We can also, so in the end, it's not the clicker. I would look at, what my preparation is, what the environmental setup. Have I set the dog up for success? What the prompt, all the antecedent arrangements, everything that goes into that, so that because that shapes the dog's expectations
exactly.
and the context. We all know that dogs are not great at contextualizing, right? So we can make it easy by having different contexts for different behaviors while we're training them. That all can really help. Anyway, I can wax on and on and on about this.
Yeah, right. Well, we'll probably draw it to a close there, I think.
Yeah. I
And
just hope it was answering the question.
I think it was as best as it can be answered without saying it depends. So Debbie said, I think he wants the food. He's a real foodie, but conflicts with his desire to hunt um, and please her, but provides clarity. Sessions are high reinforcement, short sessions. Yeah, absolutely. Great. And I would be interspersing, those sorts of things with some calming stuff as well, so that you're helping him to learn to do the ups and downs, navigate those. Super duper. Brilliant. Well, I will see you next week. I will have come back from my short breakaway this weekend by Wednesday. And are you back in 2 weeks, Barbara?
Yeah,
Yeah, brill.
yeah. This is yeah. Oh,
I'll plan some stuff for her to do for 2 weeks' time.
I
I
think
can
I'm
go
coming back.
wild.
I will be back. I will just be back.
Well, see how it goes. So she
Yeah.
may or may not be here next 2 weeks' time. You'll definitely have to put up with me, though.
Oh my goodness.
I know,
There's
lucky.
no breaking Julia.
No, not yet, anyway. So yeah, we'll see you there. See you in the group. And yeah, have a great week. Oh, and don't
Yeah.
forget, please, please pop along next time when Victoria's here because it's going to be a really good one. And if
Yeah.
you can pop any questions you've got on consent-based handling into the Facebook group, so we can collate or, put it underneath the event or whatever, we can collate all those together. And
Oh yeah, that's a really
everybody
good
wants to
idea.
prepare.
Any kind of
Yeah,
handling of consent questions, and then we can maybe pop a post, say
yeah,
we um in the group too, right? For
exactly that. So
put your
yeah,
questions here, and then we can
yeah, then
well.
they're all together, aren't they?
Mm.
Brill, we will see you. Well, I will see you then. And we'll both
We'll
see
see
you in
you
a couple of
around.
weeks. Take care. Have a great
Cheers,
week.
guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.